Hello everyone, welcome to this session on what is Azure CDN. Today in this session, I will be taking you through what is content delivery network and how you can create one in the Azure portal. So let's get started. So first, let's go ahead and understand what is the need of an Azure CDN, right? So let's go ahead and understand why a content delivery network is important. So guys, content delivery networks are basically tools using which you can reduce the response time of a particular transaction on web. For example, let's say I have my company servers in the US, right? So somebody in India who tries to access my website, the website will take a lot more time to load than people who are sitting in the US, simply because of the distance between the user in India and the user in US, right? So the data takes a lot more time to travel from US to India rather than just traversing between the US states. So that's why we make use of something called as content delivery network. Now, what is a content delivery network? A content delivery network basically helps you to cache the data to the nearest servers which are there for the user, which basically means that, let's say, there is my server in the US. Now there are some files which are never going to change, right? There are some images on the website, some static files per se. So these static files can be cached to the nearest user, who's trying to access the website, and then that server will be providing those files or providing that website to that particular user. Now, how does this help? Well, this helps in reducing the response time. Why? Because now instead of using the US server for getting all the data, my user in India, he can get the data directly from the nearest server of Azure, right? So when you enable Azure content delivery network on a particular storage bucket, what happens is the data in that bucket is cached to all the Azure Edge servers around the world. And edge servers are basically present in every country in most of the states. And how does that help? It helps because now, let's say a person in Africa tries to access the static files which are there in the website. So these files will be served to him not from US but from the nearest server in his country, right? And with that, we save a lot of time in the transaction. So to give you a perspective of what I'm saying, you can imagine it like this: that let's say we are talking about this Intellipaat website, right? So this Intellipaat website has a lot of things. It has this logo, it has this logo, right? Then there are content which are static. Then there are these icons which are static, and these are probably the highest, the highest size uh, the files which are present on this particular website, right? So if you talk about the code is going to be very small, but when it comes down to static files like these icons, in some cases, let's say you take the example of Netflix or YouTube, you are basically accessing videos, right? Now these videos are also static files. So if, let's say, YouTube servers are in the US and somebody from India is trying to access YouTube, if all the files are coming from the US, it obviously take a lot of time in buffering. So YouTube also makes use of content delivery networks to cache all their videos which are accessed in India to the Indian servers, and basically from there it is served to them, right? So this is what a content delivery network is, guys. I hope the concept is clear, and that's why we use it, right? Now let's go ahead and understand what is Azure CDN. Now this was not just limited to Azure. A lot of cloud providers provide a content delivery network service. Now there is a specific service in Azure which helps you do Azure or which helps you achieve content delivery network as well, right? So let's shed a light on that and let's understand what it is. So guys, Azure content delivery network is possible in Azure storage. So what you can do is you can create a bucket in Azure storage, and then you can enable content delivery network on that, right? So Azure CDN is a global CDN solution for delivering high bandwidth content. The reason being that whatever content that we are trying to deliver, it will be delivered in the lowest response time. Second thing is it can cache static objects. So that's what I told you, that all the static objects like icons, like videos, these can be cached to the nearest servers, because these are essentially all the files which take up a lot of content of the website. If you talk about the code is always going to be in 1 or 2 or 3 kbs, right? But when you talk about the static files, that is the files which basically takes the most time while loading a website, right? So to load these static files, we load it from the content delivery network. So we can cache a static object loaded from Azure Blob Storage. Azure Blob Storage are the buckets that I'm talking about, right? So all the storage that you do in Azure Blob can be cached, and this cache is basically done to the nearest server of the user, right? And that is exactly what the Azure CDN service does, right? It can also accelerate dynamic content which cannot be cached by leveraging various network and routing optimization. Now, one content that you talked about is static content, but what Azure CDN can also do for you is basically improve the delivery speed of dynamic content as well. What is dynamic content? Dynamic content basically means content which changes frequently, right? For example, videos are not dynamic in nature, they are static in nature, they never change. Whatever movie you saw 20 years ago is going to be the same today as well if you have the CD, right? So similarly, these kind of files are called static, they never change. But there are some dynamic content on the web which changes according to user input, right? Now, if there are some dynamic content, Azure CDN also helps you to basically deliver it in the most efficient manner. How? By basically routing the files through the Azure network. So right now, whatever happens, let's say if I'm trying to access from the US server, the data is going to come via the internet. But when you basically make use of Azure CDN for dynamic content, in that case, what happens is it does not basically route it through the internet. It basically routes it from Azure's internal fiber optic network, and basically from the nearest edge location of mine. Again, in this case, it gets released onto the internet and then it reaches me. So in that case as well, because we have optimized the network paths, right? So that's why this file reaches me to the in the fastest manner possible. So now let's go ahead and implement Azure CDN, and let's understand how we can achieve this. So first of all, what you'll have to do is you'll have to head over to Azure portal. It's going to look something like this. And first, let's create a resource group, and let's call this resource group as demo, right? So let's create a resource group called demo. It's called a demo, and let it sit in, let's say, West US, somewhere outside India. Let's try to set it in Central US. Let's assume. Okay, so this resource group of mine is sitting in Central US, and now even the a blob that I'm going to create in the demo resource group is going to sit inside Central US. Okay, so let me go to storage. So I'll go to storage accounts. Let's create a storage account. And let's include it in the demo resource group. Let's name the storage account as, let's say, Intellipaat. Okay. It's going to be inside Central US, and rest everything, let's leave it at default. And let's review plus create. So this will now create a storage account of ours in the demo resource group in Central US. Okay, so let's create it. So now that our storage account is being created, what we'll do is we'll create a blob storage. We'll create a blob storage bucket, and inside that we'll upload some files, and we'll enable CDN on it so that the the files are actually cached on the edge servers where the file will be accessed from, right? So we'll do that in a second once it gets deployed. All right, so my storage account is now created. Now what I can do is I can just head over to the resource group, the demo resource group, and here I'll find my storage account, which is basically called, one second. So it'll take some time to reflect over here. So when it is even deployed, it takes some time. So what we can do is we can just straight away go to resource, and you can find we have the Intellipaat storage account over here. It will take some time to reflect over there. It's a little buggy in the Azure portal. Don't worry about it. So right now my storage account has been created. And now what I can do is I can just go to the blob storage, which is now called containers. And I can create a container over here. Let's call it hello world. Okay, let's click on create. So hello world container is created, and here we can now upload some files. Okay, so let's click on upload. Let's select a file. And let's try to upload, let's say this JPG. So this is some wallpaper that I'm uploading right now. It's around 741 KB. It's been uploaded. So now let me show you how you can access this wallpaper, right? So if I want to access this wallpaper, there will be a link over here, which is this. So right now, if I try to access this link, you will see I will get a error. Now, what is that error? So the salary is, so the error that you get is resource not found. Okay. Now, if you're getting a resource not found error, now what can we do with this particular error? Let's go ahead and solve this. We can basically go ahead and change the permission for this. So how can you change the permission? Just click on that file, click on change access level, and click on container. This basically makes it anonymous read access for containers and blobs. Change it. It has been changed. Come back over here, refresh, and you can see you can load the wallpaper now, right? Looks good. So now from this particular link, I can, if I give this link to anyone, they can basically go ahead and they can access this wallpaper. All right. Coming back, let's go back to the containers. So now what we can do is we can basically go ahead and implement Azure CDN on it. So the CDN is always implemented on the storage account. So what you can do is you can go to the Azure CDN section like this, and you can create a new CDN endpoint. Okay, so let's create one. So let's call this as Intellipaat. Now the pricing tier is always going to be what you choose. So let's choose it as standard Microsoft. CDN endpoint name, let's call it as Intellipaat. And the origin host name is going to be of the blob. Okay, let's click on create. So once the CDN is implemented, what we can do is we can go ahead and try to access our file. There are two things that you can do over here also, guys. The one thing that you can do is you can enable this blob to basically host a website for you. Right. In that case, you can also upload content over there, and then in that case, you will get a specified link, which will help for static website hosting. Right, and that you can basically enable CDN on that. Right now, I'm showing you on the blob level. So let's go ahead and implement it. Okay, so now that the CDN has been created, you can see that we have a link over here. So this is the endpoint hostname and this is the origin hostname. So if we check our website, you can see that this was basically the blob origin name. And this is also the origin host name. Now, what we have to do is we just have to replace the endpoint host name with this. So if we replace this and hit enter, it says he directed you too many times. Try clearing your cookies. Okay, so what we'll do is, 1 second. So let's open it in an incognito window. So if we just go to our blob link, let me show you how that works. It will give you a 404 page. It says page not found. Okay, why? Because we did not mention the file that we wanted to work with. Now if we go ahead and use this particular URL, which is of the JPG, let's see what happens. Okay, so I think we'll have to first create a static website here. 1 second, guys. So let's enable the static website first. Coming back. Let's enable static website hosting. Let's say the index document is this. Error document is this. Just give me a moment. So once we enable static website hosting, what will happen is that in this particular Azure storage account, if you go to containers, we'll get a new container called $web, right? And inside that, we can upload our files. Okay, we got a $web folder. Now, inside this folder, we will be uploading the files. All right. So now let's go ahead and create an index.html file very quickly. So we'll create a hello world file. And we'll try to create it on the desktop and we'll call it as index.html. All right, so index.html has been created. Similarly, let's create one error.html as well. We'll just type in error over here. Let's save it. Error.html, let's call it that. So index.html and error.html both are created. And now what we are going to do is we're going to go to portal. Let's upload index.html. So we'll go to desktop. And from here, we are basically going to upload index.html. Let's upload it. And let's upload error.html as well. Click on upload. Done. So with this, what now happens is that with the index.html, we can now change the access level to container so that we can access it. For the error.html also, let's change the access level And now what we can do is we can just go back and we can go to $web. Sorry, we can go to static files, our static website option in our storage accounts. And if you go to static website like this, we can find this is the primary endpoint of our static website. So if we basically go ahead and paste this over here, you will be able to see your hello world page, the index.html that you created. Now on this, we can enable CDN. So we'll go to Azure CDN and we can just add one more CDN profile. Let's call it static Intellipaat. Okay, pricing tier would be standard Microsoft. CDN endpoint would be static Intellipaat. Origin hostname would be of the static website. Let's hit on create. All right, so this CDN endpoint is now getting created. It'll take some while. Okay, so now let's go back to Azure CDN. And here we can see our static Intellipaat CDN is ready. So we can just go there and we can copy the endpoint hostname like this, paste it over here. And now you will be able to see, we'll just type in index.html like this. Okay, so I think it will take some time. Let it be ready and then we'll try to access it. So as you can see, this is the website name and this is also the origin host name over here. All right, so it'll take some time. Let's give it that time and then try to access it. So let's give it some time to load and then try to do it. Okay. So guys, what we can do is we can also try the other uh, Azure CDN that we created. So it should be ready by now while we created this static website CDN. So if we go to the first CDN, which was in Intellipaat.azureedge.net, we should now be able to see that image, right? So this was the endpoint host name. Let's copy it. Let's paste it over here. This is the Azure CDN link, right? Now over this, we have to add just the URL of our origin host name, that is of the JPG file that we were trying to load, right? Copy it in front of our Azure Edge URL. And now if you load it, you can see the image loaded a lot faster. And this happened because this file is now being served from the nearest server of mine. So right now, if I am in Bangalore, this image is being served from the nearest server to Bangalore. So probably I think the nearest Azure server in my case, it's around Chennai, right? So that's where this image is being served from. Rather than if I go to this particular link, which was of the original file, this is there in central US. So if I try to access this file, this is basically loaded from the US region. But because now we have enabled CDN and we have got a new link, which is in Intellipaat.azureedge.net, right? This will always be served from the nearest server. And that's why you can see this file, which is loaded from now the Chennai server. And obviously the difference would be in seconds. But if you improve a website by even 1 second, it is considered to be extremely extremely good hack that you have done to improve the loading of the website, right? So this particular step of implementing content delivery network on your website is extremely important because it results in faster response times. Similarly, let's check if our website is now ready. So website, this is the website CDN, and let's load it. And as you can see now over here as well, the website has started showing up. So here is our hello world page, and we also configured an error page. So let's go over there. And here, right now, the error page is also being set up. So it will take some time. But as you can see, if we go to just this link, we are able to see the index.html, which is great, right? So guys, this is how you can basically implement Azure CDN on either static files or on a static website. So I hope this session was useful to you guys. So one quick tip over here would be, even though let's say Azure is telling you that it has been successfully been created, it will take its own sweet time, around 3 to 4 minutes, to reflect the files that are there in your origin hostname, because these files first have to be copied to all the edge servers, and then it is basically seen by you, right? So that copying process, it takes some time initially, but once it's done, it works like butter, right? So now you can see I can access both my static website from these Azure Edge link, and even my file is accessible on the Azure Edge link, which is basically Azure CDN. All right. So with that, guys, I thank you all for joining in. I hope this short session was useful to you about Azure CDN. Right. We will be coming up with more such sessions. So stay tuned. I will see you in some other session. Have a great day ahead, and goodbye.